What's up, marketers? In today's video, I'm going to show you my favorite brands to stock on the Facebook ads library. And if you don't know what the Facebook ads library is, well, do I have a treat for you. The Facebook ads library is essentially a search engine for any and all brands that are currently advertising on Facebook, which means that you can look at your favorite brands or your competitors' Facebook ads at any given time. For what it's worth, TikTok also has a tool that's kind of like this. So if you're advertising on TikTok, be sure to check that out as well. Now, I'd say that I use Facebook ads library practically every day to get ad inspiration or even to see what my clients' competitors are running. And for ad inspiration specifically, there are a few brands that I always return to. So here are the 10 or so brands that I always look to for ad inspiration, including one that is not a brand at all, hint, hint, and the brand that I always show to my clients who are afraid of UGC. So the first brand that I want to talk about is actually a brand that I'm a little bit newer to following, but it's because their ad creative is so good, and that is Gainful. Now, the reason why I really like following Gainful is because they are masters of creative testing, particularly hook testing. What I see them doing routinely is testing out the first 3 seconds of some of their best performing ads and testing out different types of messaging, different types of imagery, and really using that on top of their best performing videos, which is a really good strategy, and I think they do well with it. Now, this is also a brand that does a really good job of balancing more of that branded, elevated content with more UGC, user-generated style content. And what I see them constantly iterating on in terms of their branded assets is a lot of these feature point out ads. What's really cool here is they do a really good job of testing out different types of images and also testing out different types of point outs and features that they're using, which is a really good strategy. And again, they're not afraid of UGC, and they constantly have new creators and new things swapped in and out of there. So this is a brand that I'm constantly referring to because they're updating their ad account pretty much every other day. So this is a good one to watch. The second brand that I like to follow is Athletic Greens. So this is actually pretty similar product-wise to Gainful, but the reason why I actually like following Athletic Greens as well is actually to do more with their branded content, specifically more of their elevated branded videos. And I think what they do really well is figuring out new and engaging ways to hook the user with imagery. They do a lot of reverse style ads at the beginning, and it's always really eye-catching. Additionally, they have tons of UGC that is running around. I feel like every time actually I open my phone or my desktop and I go to Facebook or Instagram, I'm constantly slapped across the face with an Athletic Greens ad. And what's kind of cool is I never feel like I see the same one twice. So they are also another brand that is constantly swapping in and out of the creative of their ad account. So it's another good one to watch. And for clients that need more elevated or branded content, this is a brand that I constantly refer to because I think that they're able to do more elevated content in a way that still attracts the user, is hooky, is engaging, without seeming too gritty or too much like lo-fi quality UGC, which frankly I just don't think is right for this brand. So if I'm ever working with a client that needs a little bit more elevation, Athletic Greens is generally what I like to look at for inspiration for those type of brands. Now, the next two brands that I like to look for ad inspiration are both like hairstyle, hair care brands. So that's going to be Vegamore as well as Pros. Now, I actually think that they're probably working with the same creative strategist because a lot of what they're both doing well in terms of hook testing, in terms of messaging testing, especially in that initial 3 seconds, it looks very similar, but I imagine that it's really effective because they're really trying to narrow down what's the most effective messaging hook for getting their customers. And I also feel like the type of branded content that they're using too, it looks very elevated, it looks very pretty. Who knows if it actually performs or not, but I think it's definitely something that would keep the clients happy. So I often refer back to those two brands too to see just other diverse types of styles. I also think too something that like Vegamore does really well is testing out more native types of assets that still tend to look actually pretty polished, which is really cool. Like this particular ad, which looks like an Instagram story response to post style ad. So it's these kind of strategies that I really like testing out because it does feel a little bit more native and it does feel a little bit more engaging to the end user. And as a fun little anecdote, I actually recently had a client ask me if Thesis, the agency where I currently work at, did the ads for Pros. And it was definitely a very big compliment because even though we do not, this is a brand that I often look to for ad inspiration. So I thought that that was pretty cool. Now, the next brand that I often refer back to is habitscan. And this is actually a newer style brand. And what I actually really like about it is I think that their product is actually quite novel. It is an SPF spray that you can essentially spray over your face after you're done putting on your makeup. I mean, can't tell you how many times I have put on a full face of makeup only to realize I didn't put on sunscreen. Yikes. And this is something that I found very relatable, and they tend to communicate very, very well in their ads. And I think actually what habitscan does amazingly well is doing more of this TikTok style creative. I have definitely used them as ad examples in the past, and I'm always making sure to check out their ad account. I also happen to work with a few skincare brands, so even though they're not a direct competitor to some of my clients, I always like to keep a close eye on what habitscan is doing, because I often think that the native strategies that they're testing out in their ad account is really on the right path. I also just think they're kind of funny, which is cool. The next brand that I like to follow is, again, another skincare brand, and again, because I do happen to work with a few skincare clients, is one that I tend to watch really closely, and that is Curology. Now, I do happen to know that Curology does work with the same creative strategists that a few of these other brands that I'm mentioning today are working with, but really a big reason why I like to watch Curology specifically is they do the benefits style ads really, really well, and they like to test into a lot more of the TikTok style strategies, like the responding to a certain comment. They do that really well. And I also see them just like not being afraid to step outside of the box and try other like broader TikTok trends, which I think is really cool. But they have no shortage of UGC at any given time. And they also have a lot of branded content. So I'm not sure if you guys are noticing a pattern really. A lot of the brands that I follow don't just do UGC. They don't just do branded content, but they have a wide variety of each. And these are also brands that seem to be updating almost on the daily, which is why I try to check them on the daily. And Curology is no exception. It's definitely a brand that I really like to follow. Also, I will make another note, particularly about Curology. Part of the reason why I think a lot of what they do works is because of their offer. They have a really attractive upfront offer that I think is a really good hook for those first initial customers. So this is definitely a brand that I would look out to if you're trying to figure out what type of offer could be a good hook for your customers, especially if you're a subscription-based brand. Yikes. Okay, the next two brands that I'm going to talk about are also skincare brands. Yikes, do you guys see? I actually do work with a few skincare brands. But Disco Skin and Lumen Skin are two other brands. They're both men's skincare that I like to look at a lot. Particularly Disco Skin is probably my favorite one to look at because they're really not afraid to have a lot of fun in their ad account. They used to do tons of meme style ads, and right now I see them leaning into a lot of TikTok heavy strategy. I think it's really cool. I often like laugh out loud when I'm looking through their ad account, so that is a good one to follow if you want to inject a little bit more of humor into your ad creative, or if you want to see something a little bit more out of the box. Frankly, a lot of my clients, and I think a lot of clients that you guys probably work with, wouldn't be comfortable testing a lot of Disco Skin type of ads, but I do think that a lot of what they're doing is really interesting. So I always make sure to check into their ad account to see what's going on there. And by ad account, I mean their ads library. I do not have access to any of these brands' ad accounts yet. The next brand that I am always sure to check out is Flow Vitamins. Now, I do happen to work with a few supplement brands, so that's one of the reasons why I like to check out this brand. But again, this is another brand that's really not afraid to poke fun at itself and really is all about testing more out-of-the-box wild ideas. And they're also able to test out certain trends that aren't necessarily related to TikTok or to like paid social in general. Like they did this one ad where they recreated the sign guy, but they have like a sign girl and made it into a meme, which I thought was really funny. I think they do a really good job of agitating the end user's actual problem. So this is a really good one to follow, I'd say, specifically for messaging and how to deliver that message. They do a lot of out-of-the-box stuff, which I think is really cool. Now, the next brand I'm going to talk about is actually one that I just added today before deciding to film this video, and this is Cometeer Coffee. Now, this is actually a pretty new brand, and I actually discovered them on Twitter because a number of my friends are working with them, and it seems to be all the rage right now, this like frozen puck of coffee that you can pour hot water over into. you get it. But the reason why I really enjoy following their ad account recently is because of their user-generated content. I think that they've actually been able to, in a short amount of time, nail the type of briefs that they're giving to their creators to actually come up with statements and phrases that are incredibly sticky. I know that there's one particular UGC ad that they have that's literally just a compilation of people reacting to the product. And when I saw that, I actually shared it with someone on my team, and I was like, this is the type of ad that like we need to create for another beverage brand that we're working with. Like, this is really solid. And I think that they've also been doing some really interesting, more branded, elevated types of content that uses testimonials. So I would definitely say that Cometeer Coffee is a good brand to watch if you're interested in elevating your brand's ad creative, not only for more of the branded graphic-y style ad, but also for the UGC. They've been able to do what I think is successful UGC without it being too overly branded or too overly scripted or like too fancy. Like, it looks like gritty UGC, but I think it's pretty effective. Again, I'm not really sure, but it looks like it could be effective from my perspective. Now, the next brand is not a brand at all, but it is a good friend of mine, Savannah Sanchez. I would highly, highly recommend, if you are a media buyer with any vague interest of creatives, to follow this woman on Twitter. I'm not kidding. I probably type in her name in the Twitter search bar at least a few times a week, because she is putting out a wealth of knowledge on ad creatives almost daily about what her and her creators are developing. And this is really some of the best, most well strategized, user-generated content that I have seen. And I'm not lying. Oftentimes I've actually had clients send me UGC of Savannah's and be like, how do we make something like that? So I really like looking to her for broad strategies that her and her girls are using, and also just looking at the different ways that they're filming UGC and other types of inspo. Really, she is a great person to follow, and I also tend to follow the other brands that she's working with to see what other types of ad creatives they're doing. I actually was gonna list a lot of the brands that she was working with inside of this video, but I decided to just lump them all under her because a lot of it is from her direction. So be sure to check her out on Twitter, follow her, see the brands that she's working with, and then also follow those brands, because that's exactly what I do. And the last brand that I want to talk about is actually a brand that has started targeting me recently, and it's a brand that I see doing really well elevated user-generated content, and that's Jenny Kane. Now, Jenny Kane is a sweater brand, I guess. I don't know. I'm definitely in market for a nice sweater, but what I've seen them do particularly well is a lot of great whitelisting ads. And actually, something that I wanted to mention is when you are typing in these brands to Facebook Ads Manager, you're not actually going to be able to see a lot of the whitelisted content. And I do have a bit of a hack for that. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to type in the brand. You're not going to want to select it from the drop down, but just hit enter. And this is actually going to show you the whitelisting ads that they have running out. And Jenny Kane actually tends to do this pretty well. And what's kind of cool is they actually work with several of their team members to create UGC and then run those through their own personal accounts. I'm not gonna lie, this is a strategy that I sometimes use, so be sure to follow me on Instagram, and then you might also see some of the ads that my clients are running under my handle. Now, one of the other reasons I really like looking at Jenny Kane is because I think that they're able to test out a lot of different ad strategies without sacrificing the brand, which is something that's a really big concern when you work with fashion clients or accessories clients. I think they're able to test out a lot of cool ad strategies without sacrificing that brand image, while still being able to develop content that is going to convert. Things like testing different types of messaging, testing different types of ad strategies. So this is one that I look for when I'm working with a client that needs a little bit more of that elevation. And of course, if they're in the fashion industry, it's one that I often refer to a lot. And that's it. Now, if I did not mention a brand that you guys often follow on Facebook Ads Manager, let me know who else I should be following in the comments below. I would really, really like to know who else you guys are stalking on Facebook Ads Manager. And that's it. I will see you guys next time. Bye.